What's up, everybody? Welcome into Group Chat Football. I am Peter Ariz alongside D Money. Remember to hit that like button on this video and subscribe to the channel, as we are your source for transfer portal news, coaching movement news, all across college football. Again, Group Chat Sports. Appreciate everyone watching our video today, as we are talking about the top 10 players in the college football playoff. Excited about this one. So many great players across college football, D Money. But we've got to nail this down to the top 10 who are playing for the ultimate prize of the championship.
Yeah, and this is not going to be lifetime achievement awards. It's not just based strictly on production. Obviously, production plays a role. But to me, the way I look at this is if you're playing a game, which is, of course, win or go home playoff, who do you want on your team? That means production, yes, talent, ability to make impact, game-changing plays. Doesn't matter if you're a senior or a freshman, your ability to change the game. If you're just pick a ball, who do you want? Some players I left out before we get to it. Drew Allar, playing unbelievable football for Penn State. He could end up being a no-brainer by the end of these playoffs based on his current trajectory. Body of work-wise, he's been inconsistent. Also, Kelvin, the great tackle for Texas. With the injury concerns, I'm not ready to put him in this top 10. Although, again, when you look back at these playoffs, you might say this is one of the top 10 players in the entire playoffs. So with that said, let's start with one of the cult heroes of this college football season. Probably the guy that was the most slept on of anybody in this list coming out of high school, and that is Cam Skattebo. 5'10", 220 pounds, 2,000 plus yards of scrimmage, over 500 at receiving, 22 touchdowns, 6 yards per carry. This guy's from Rio Linda, California, went to Sacramento State, which is now going to be a D1 school or an FBS school, but at that point was not. He was the Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year, then goes to Arizona State and dominates. I mean, Skattebo, this guy, the contact balance, you think the play is done, just like this one right here, and it just does not finish. He has that balance. He has that want to. He surprises you a little bit with his, look at the quickness there. And then, of course, the balance at the end of the run. He surprises you with some of the athletic ability. Again, you treat him like a bruiser, but he's 500 plus yards receiving. So I think that shows you there's more of a versatile player, more of an athlete than he gets credit for.
And I think you said it at the beginning. He's a fan favorite, man. I think he's an old school type runner for college football fans across the country. He's just a throwback style guy. And again, the fact that he's been so important on a team that was a big surprise this season in the way that they handled their business down the stretch there for Arizona State. So to me, he's well-deserved. And then the next guy on the list, I think, for as old school and throwback as Cam Skattebo is, this next one is maybe even more so, as Tyler Warren here, tight end at Penn State. And I'm pulling up, when there's blocking highlights for a guy, that he is hard-nosed and tough, the best tight end in the country, many would say. And you see it here on this tape. What a valuable player for this Penn State team.
Yeah, probably the most versatile player in the country. You see him blocking. He's also played quarterback. He was a quarterback in high school. He's run routes as a tight end, blocked in line. He's played receiver. He's been the running back. He's been the punter in certain situations. Over 1,000 receiving yards, 6 touchdown catches, 191 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, 35 passing yards, a touchdown throw. Do-it-all player, and he's been a do-it-all player since high school. I mentioned he played quarterback. He was a 3-star at Atlee High School in Mechanicsville, Virginia. I don't know how this guy had 3 stars. He was a very good tester in high school, ran 4.7 laser, and of course, he's very big and he was versatile. So that's the kind of thing that recruiting services look back and say, Cam Skattebo, you miss those guys sometimes. Tyler Warren should have been a high 4-star player based on what he put on tape, going back and watching his high school highlights, seeing his testing numbers, and then, of course, what he's developed into, which is the absolute most versatile player. Well, there's a guy named Travis Hunter. Maybe I should maybe I should be careful there.
For the teams in the playoffs.
Certainly the most versatile player in the playoffs. Let's put it that way.
So next up on the list here, coming in at number 8, is number 8 himself. And this is an interesting one because this was a Heisman finalist, but he does not crack our top 5. And that's Dillon Gabriel, quarterback for Oregon, on his 3rd school, ton of experience, great leader from everything that we know about him and everything that his teammates say. Of course, started his career at UCF, went to Oklahoma, and now at Oregon. as the quarterback for the number 1 team in the country. Just a very steady guy at the position, gets the ball out quick. Not the biggest guy in the world, but with all that talent around him, man, you don't need to do much. Just be efficient with it. Get the ball out quick and protect the football.
Yeah, the lefty's been around forever, from Hawaii. Another 3-star player, right? We start this list with a no-star and then 2 3-star players. With Gabriel, 6 years of college football, about UCF, OU, and now Oregon, all around the country. 73% passing, which is, incredible completion percentage. Over 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 picks. He can run the ball a little as well. When you look at this playoff, it's almost like the NCAA tournament, right? Or the NFL playoffs, the larger playoffs that we're used to watching. The guys who have played a lot of football at the decision-making positions, which is guards in basketball, right? Or lead ball handlers in basketball, and then quarterbacks in the NFL, and here in the college football playoff, that's usually what wins, because your decision maker in those high-stress playoff moments is seasoned and is experienced. That's how it usually works in those other tournaments. We'll see what works here in the college football playoff. But if you're looking for a seasoned decision maker in these playoffs, there is nobody more seasoned than Dillon Gabriel. It's certainly not Nico, Drew Allar, Levitt. These guys are somewhat newer players. They've accomplished a lot, but they have not been through the crucible. They don't have the snaps that Dillon Gabriel has. So I'm very curious to see what kind of advantage he presents in these playoffs based on his experience, because in other sports, that kind of thing makes a big difference in the playoff format. First year of the 12-team playoff, we'll see how it goes.
Versatility has been a theme early on here in our list, D. And next up on our top 10 players in the college football playoff list is one of the most versatile defenders in the country, Malaki Starks at Georgia, who's been doing it since a very young age, since he was a freshman on the biggest stage. This is a guy who lines up all over the defensive backfield for Georgia, and he's really an eraser on the back end for the Bulldogs.
You see here, this is against Oregon and against Clemson. How many safeties can do that? 6'1", 205, 73 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 1 INT, 3 pass breakups. Played star, played safety. The production itself is very good, but it doesn't scream the absolute best player in the country. But again, this is, to me, who are you picking, right? This is the playground, who you're picking. You can't let this guy sit on the sidelines. He is too talented, too athletic. According to PFF, he lined up 252 times in the slot, 190 times in the box, and 385 times on the back end of the defense. Only missed 6 tackles and 843 snaps. Freak of nature, 800 meters, long jump over 24 feet, which is just explosive. Also played basketball, 5-star player, top 20 overall out of high school in Jefferson, Georgia. So when you talk about versatility, production, toughness, consistency, and then freakish athletic ability, I got to go with Malaki Starks on my team. I want to see plays like that against Oregon and Clemson, 2 playoff teams, by the way, in these big games.
Now we're going to follow that up with another defensive back, Ohio State's Caleb Downs. And he's not just making plays on the defensive side of the ball, as he's also one of the most electric return men in the country. Here's one of his returns against Indiana earlier this season. But you're talking about size, you're talking about speed, you're talking about physicality, ball hawk. He's really got it all at the safety spot.
And again, some lists I've seen do not have guys like Malaki Starks or Caleb Downs as high as we have them. But I think when you get these special playmakers, they make plays in games like this, Clemson, Oregon, and in this case, Indiana, another playoff team. So in these big games with great athletes all over the field, you need those superior athletes. That's why I like Starks. That's why I love Caleb Downs, 6'2", 205, another Georgia guy from Jackson County, 5-star, top 10 overall player. 61 tackles, half a sack, 1 INT, that punt return TD you just showed. But again, it's the ability to raise their game. You need special players when you're playing these big games. There's a lot of good players on the field. You're not going to – some players dominate bad players, right? Some players can make plays against good players. The great players can be on a field of great players and rise above all of them, and I think that is something that Caleb Downs has the ability to do. Both him and Malaki Starks, first-round picks all day, special dudes.
Next up here, another defensive player, as this list has been flooded with defensive players, Jalen Walker from Georgia, a guy who really sets the tone in terms of pass rushing on this Bulldogs defense.
Yeah, the familiar story with these Georgia freaks of nature, right? 57 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. He can play off the ball. He can rush. Butkus Award winner, has that versatility to do both, kind of like a Micah Parsons. Salisbury, North Carolina native, 3-sport athlete, played track, played basketball, also was a tight end, high 4-star player, top 50 player, but he's outperformed even that ranking. I go back to the versatility and freakishness. You got to adjust to these other teams. You're playing a lot of different styles in the playoffs. You're playing a lot of great players, got teams with different strengths and weaknesses on offense. A guy like Jalen Walker, if you need him to stand up and be the traditional linebacker and do that, you need him to come off the edge and sack Quinn Ewers. Look at that right there. He's relentless. He's explosive. His change of direction is outstanding. His motor's there. His instincts, which are there, which is not always the case for these freakish linebackers. This guy's going to be a top 10 pick for a reason. Special dude.
Another future top 10 pick, Anthony Hill, a guy at the linebacker spot who is your prototype in today's day and age, D.
It's, I feel like we're repeating ourselves with some of these guys, but we're picking similar players for a reason. It's because they're just so special and they bring that package of production, versatility, IQ, and freakish athleticism. All of those things. Anthony Hill's right there with it. 6'3", 235, 90 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. That's how explosive he is through contact. And an INT, 5-star player at Orion High School in Denton. Similar to Walker, who we just looked at, because he's a traditional off-ball linebacker. And if you need him to rush, boom, he's able to beat the tackle and then get to the quarterback. He is just a tremendous athlete who's also a tremendous football player. Those two things don't always come together, but this is such a high IQ guy and understands angles. Is very, pass rushing and off-ball linebacker are two very, very different positions, different skill sets, require different athleticisms. They're different angles that you're looking at the game from. When you're playing linebacker, you're in traffic, you're kind of seeing it almost like a running back. Rusher, you're coming one-on-one with that offensive tackle. So very different. Not everybody can excel at both. Micah Parsons was one of those guys. Jalen Walker is one of those guys, and Anthony Hill is another one of those guys.
We've had a run of defensive players here, and it's not stopping, as arguably the best pass rusher in the country for Penn State, Abdul Carter. Talk about a guy with big-time upside for the next level, but he's been super impactful for the Nittany Lions this season. 6'3", about 260, 10 sacks this season, and a disruptive force in pretty much every game that he plays in. Coming in at number 3 on this list.
You're seeing this highlight here, much more of an off-ball linebacker, explosive sideline to sideline against Oregon. So these last 3 players have been pretty similar. I think we can say safely this is a theme in college football right now, at least at the elite level, that you have a multitude of guys that can be your traditional off-ball linebacker and rush the passer. Call it the Micah Parsons effect, right? Maybe in the past, these guys would have been just off-ball linebackers or just pass rushers, but he showed that you can do both. Of course, the comparisons to Micah Parsons are probably most prevalent with Abdul Carter, given the number, given the team that he plays for. 6'3", 259, runs in the 4.5, 60 tackles, 20 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 49 pressures. He's one of the only players who's top 5 in tackles for loss and pressures. He can make plays against the run and the pass. Was a low 4-star coming out of LaSalle High School in Glenside, Pennsylvania, or right outside of Philly. So he is somebody that, if Abdul Carter smashed a quarterback and people are looking for him, but just an unbelievable talent and somebody that can make a lot of plays both in the backfield, getting the quarterback down, and if he needs to go sideline, he's capable of doing that.
Next one on this list may be a surprise to some, but it really shouldn't be, as we're going with a true freshman, and that is Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver at Ohio State. Regardless of position, I think without a doubt, this guy is one of the most special talents in the country. Again, true freshman, came in as the number 1 player in the country out of Chaminade Madonna High School in Broward County in South Florida, and he has lived up to and surpassed even his expectations from day one.
Yeah, look, maybe it's controversial to have Jeremiah Smith right here at the close to the top of the list, but I think as a player, you can't do better than 6'3", 215, 57 catches, 934 yards, 10 touchdowns. As a true freshman, breaking Chris Carter's receiving records. He was the number 1 overall player in high school. I think he's going to be the number 1 overall player in the country next year. He might be the number 1 overall player by the end of these playoffs. We've seen him since he was a pup. This is someone who's always been good, always been an incredibly hard worker, but then the physical got to a level where he's a state champion hurdler, his size, his strength, and then, of course, his hands, his ability to go up and high point the ball, combined with that work ethic and focus. The only comps I can make to this guy, Andre Johnson, who's also from Miami, we saw growing up, very similar combination of IQ, seriousness, and physical traits. And then a Julio Jones, another hard worker with great traits. Kelvin Johnson, you see a pattern there. He is in that category because the tangibles match the intangibles.
And without much further ado, number one player on our list for the top 10 players in the college football playoff, none other than Ashton Jeanty, running back for Boise State. What an incredible season he had. Many would argue that he was the Heisman Trophy winner, the rightful winner, but we're not going to be discussing that here right now or arguing that here on this video. All we're saying is he is the best player in the college football playoff.
Yeah, and you see here that he has every single kind of run he can do, whether it's the short ones, the long ones, the really, really long ones. He leads the country in pretty much every single group of those runs. Father was in the Navy, traveled all over, went to Lone Star High School out of Frisco, Texas. I love the versatility. He was a great receiver last year. You didn't see it as much this year, but he can do it. You'll see it in the NFL. 11.1300 meters. He's shown the game-breaking speed against Oregon, against every team in the country. 23.375 long jump, super explosive. I don't know how this guy was a low 3-star with his ability. Heisman runner-up. Probably the best season as a running back since Barry Sanders, 344 carries, almost 2,500 yards, 7.3 yards per carry, and 29 touchdowns. He is the best player in the playoffs. He had a great case for best player in the country, and he has taken Boise State to new heights. And look, you saw what he did against Oregon. Any team playing Boise State in the playoff is going to have to lose some sleep trying to tackle this man right here. He can change a game. He can win a playoff game. He could, if you want a Cinderella team, you need a player that really carries you. That's Ashton Jeanty.
And should be a high draft pick in April for the NFL draft. So excited to watch his career develop, but excited to see Boise State in the playoffs and see how they fare against the best of the best. So, D, that was our list. Group Chat Sports, Group Chat Football Lives. Top 10 players in the college football playoff. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want more college football content.